Today, we're joined by Sean Worthington, current president of the Basement Health Association and owner of Worthington Foundation Authority in Pennsylvania. This one is for basement waterproofing, foundation repair, and anyone working in the below grade environment. We're going to cover what BHA is, who it serves, the four tiers of the BHA, what Sean's seeing across the industry, and practical takeaways that you can use immediately. Welcome to the Contractor's Edge, the show where we break down the tips, tools, and tactics that you need to grow your home service business. Whether you're in a truck or at the office, we're here to give you the edge you need to win. I'm Mike Stiers.
And I'm Anthony Brown. If you felt more competition, more homeowner skepticism, and more pressure to get it right the first time, this episode is for you.
Sean Worthington is a third-generation foundation and basement waterproofing expert. His family's been in the industry for over 65 years. He's the owner of Worthington Foundation Authority in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. He's a longtime board member of the Basement Health Association, former certification chair, former educational chair, and current BHA president. His company is the only company in the U.S. that is triple certified by the BHA.
Sean, welcome to the Contractor's Edge.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to obviously start by allowing the audience to get to know you a little bit better. What that looks like is teeing up some questions I think it's going to be relevant for them. And I wanted to start with a question that was on your website. So you ask a question and you say every contractor should ask this question. Who is this guy and why should I trust his opinion? How would you answer that?
Well, I would answer it, it's not because third generation or 65 years or education, certification chair, BHA president. Those are all good things and good reasons, but that's not the reason to trust me. The reason to trust me is because I've lived it. I've lived it from both the homeowner side and the contractor side. So on the homeowner side, I know what it feels like to have young kids and all of a sudden you've got a moisture or a mold or a water problem that's threatening their health and safety. I've lived through that experience and the fear that that puts in your heart it's real. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's one of the things that really shifted me from just being a simple basement waterproofer and really embracing the basement health mantra. And I've also experienced from the contractor side where being a member of something like the BHA, remember, I came into this association third generation. At that point, 50 years in, what could there be that we didn't already know, right?
Right.
But guess what? Turns out there's a ton of stuff we didn't already know. And what I've learned just in my decade or so with BHA, I just cannot put into words. Numbers are not sufficient. It's unbelievable. It's been absolutely transformative for my business.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have you on too, because, I obviously came from that contractor space. So being a homeowner, being in the marketing, portion of the basement doctor, I still went out on jobs, talked to homeowners and, you can tell the difference. We did a lot of secret shopping. I'm not sure if you've done any of that, along the way, but that's why, I was like, oh, having Sean on, he's going to have the experience of, being in the trenches, plus, literally running this organization. Obviously, I know that you've got a team and a board that supports that, but, for our audience, these are contractors that are looking to improve their business, understand how is a homeowner thinking, what are, best practices that they can do to, educate themselves and be more effective for the homeowner, because obviously that's what, drives the business, get you good reviews. So I'm curious, being on the contractor owner part, as well as being the president of the association, do you feel that you've kind of picked up different skills through the BHA that you're able to even teach members and kind of apply in your own business?
Oh, without question. I mean, coming into the BHA, again, we were waterproofers. Point to the water. Where's the water? Okay. Yes, I see water. We can solve that. Right. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. All right. Through my time with the BHA, we learned how to stop selling to the water. You sell to the bigger problem. The moisture is the bigger problem. And oh, by the way, the water isn't just in that spot. The water is actually everywhere. Right. Just doing that in a very short amount of time not only doubled my ticket, my average ticket, but it's not about, okay, I just making more money. I'm producing a better solution. I'm providing a better solution for the homeowner, right? I'm solving problems I didn't even realize were problems before. Now I understand that they're problems and I'm able to solve them in a better way.
I
So,
love that.
I mean, for me at least, it would not have happened without the BHA.
No, that's great. So I've got another one for you. What's one thing you believe about this industry that most contractors get wrong?
One thing I believe, and maybe I'm a little biased from my experience through the BHA, I think it's easy to look out there and look at all your competition and kind of think that they're all garbage. right? That they're all just snakes and used car salesmen and just dishonest people. I think the majority of this industry, at least 90%, they're good people. Now they might disagree on what type of systems and a lot of them may not do things the way I would consider the right way, but not so much out of any bad intentions, just out of not knowing, right? The people that they're not in the room. They're not there learning the way I've been fortunate enough to learn over the past decade, right? So they're just doing whatever their grandfather did or whatever their boss did before them, right? And they don't
Hmm.
know the difference. So I think most contractors just look out there and see everybody else as the enemy, and they're really not. It's mostly good people just trying to improve their little part of the world as best they can. And when you make that shift, it changes things.
It's such a great perspective, and, I know from living in that industry, on the contractor side, the competitors, for a long time, my mindset was that they were our enemy and that, they were shortcutting and they were, doing all these shady things. And then, over the years, as I've gotten more involved in organizations like the BHA and the NFRA, I've realized that's not the case at all. And that, everyone's just got maybe some different principles and ways that they go about doing these things. And I know a lot of what you're doing through BHA is really like educational and trying to help these contractors have that aha moment that helps protect the industry because we know the black eyes that contractors get, homeowners are so scared to have them out. So can you help our audience understand, for those that aren't familiar, what is the Basement Health Association and who is it for?
So the Basement Health Association or BHA is for any contractor working in the below grade environment. So you're talking basement waterproofers, egress contractors, structural repair contractors. In theory, it encompasses mold and radon, and the original intention was anybody in that below grade environment. The reality is it's really those three that really tend to show up the most. It's waterproofers, structural repair guys, and egress guys. And it's for anybody who wants to learn how to grow their business through a network of other people doing it.
That's great.
So you had mentioned to us when we were preparing for the episode that there are four tiers of membership to the BHA. Can you walk us through what those tiers are and what they mean?
Yeah, and by tiers might not be the right word, but sort of main concepts. So there's membership, obviously. You join in whatever way that makes sense for you. But the next level of engagement is certification, which is a fantastic tool, not just for you as an owner, but also for your team to really transform and move them to the next level. Events, probably the single most valuable part of the BHA are the events. Getting in a room with people just like you, dealing with the same problems, the same issues, and just knowing that you're not alone, right? You're not the only person dealing with this. And I cannot begin to explain how valuable that is because so many of us, especially as smaller guys, you might not even know any other basement waterproofer because everybody else is a competitor and you're not hanging out with them on weekends, right? I mean, so just being able to talk to somebody who understands what it's like to be in your shoes is tremendously valuable. And you learn from each other's mistakes. You don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. Other people in that room have made the mistakes. Learn from them and avoid making it yourself. So that's the events. And then our new one that's coming online, coming up pretty soon here is our online on-demand education platform. We've been working really hard to try and get more and more contractors out to these events because we really want to drive education. But the reality is there's, somewhere around 2,500 in our industry, 2,500 contractors out there. We're not getting 2,500 people at these events. So we need to meet people where they are, right? And give them something of value to help them grow, help them build, help them improve, even if they're not going to show up to our events. So those are sort of the four levels of the BHA.
Yeah, that's really helpful too. Just thinking about your last piece, like this on-demand education, that's helpful because you may not, let's say you get the business owner there, but what if you've got this great teacher that's putting this information together that's more for like installation or like in-home sales, and we've seen the way that you break out the organization and the educational classes, which I think is fantastic. If pretend I'm a brand new, basement waterproofer, just getting in the industry, what's the best way for me to approach the BHA so that I can get, the best return on my membership?
So the members who join up and just put the logo on their website and that's it, you're missing it. You're pretty much wasting your money, right? You get out of it what you put into it. And the real core of the value of the BHA is relationships. And it's like any other relationship. You got to put in time. You got to go there. You got to show up. You got to engage. And don't just show up and sit in the corner. Show up and go put your hand out to somebody you don't know, shake their hand, introduce yourself, get to know them, get to know their story, learn from each other, right? That's how you get value. That's how you get the return on investment from the BHA. So, number one, join. Number two, sign up for the next event. Number three, once we get this online thing rolling out, that would be a very, very valuable. And then certification, there is a caveat on certification. So the current, and we are evaluating this, but the current rule is you have to be a member for at least a year before you can get your first certification.
Oh.
So you can't just like sign up and now if you had been a member in the past, fine. And there are a few situations where that may not apply, but generally speaking, and it's just to protect the reputation of the association. We don't want some fly by night guy who has no idea what they're doing, taking a test, saying, "Oh, well, I'm certified," and then
Yeah.
blowing up somebody's house, right?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, that's a quick way for the organization to kinda get discredited, if you will. So, yeah, makes sense that you've got some longevity kind of worked into the membership for certifications. That's
Right.
understandable.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump back a little bit just to offer, and I think we might have said this a few times on the podcast, but repetition works. But the events, you'd mentioned the kind of inherent value that you get just from like collaboration with people like yourself or like your business. And it's hard to do that in your own backyard, right? So these events offer the opportunity to meet with people who aren't at risk of taking your next job away from you, right? So you can talk a little bit more candidly about the problems you're dealing with. You can hear more insights about the challenges in other people's businesses and other geographies in a different level of seasonality, because the the northern states are going to operate a little bit different than the Midwest states. Their seasons are going to be a little bit shorter. And there's all these insights that you can glean from that. And then additionally, just maybe this is just me. When I go out to conferences and I go out to these like gatherings, I kind of get juiced a little bit, right? Like I come home with a little bit more energy. It kind of forces you to jump back into that like frame of mind where you're really active, right? It's like, oh, look at all of these things that I can do. And you're really jazzed to bring that back home.
Contractors, quick reality check. You spent the money to advertise, you got the lead, you set the appointment, and you sold the job. Awesome. But if production's leaking profit, you might as well light a stack of cash on fire because marketing cannot fix sloppy installs. That's why I want you to check out our friends at Performance.io. Will Blake and his team built a pay-for-performance platform that helps you recruit and keep top talent, motivate installation teams, and simplify the whole process. Managers get control over pace, labor, and profit job by job. Will has been running it in his own company with 14 crews for over 3 years. Across thousands of crews on their platform, the averages are strong. About 12% increase in productivity, a 3 to 4% decrease in labor, and collections improving by 11%. Simply put, that's margin back in your pocket so you can reinvest, hire, and grow without chaos. Now, Will made a special offer exclusively for the Contractors Edge listeners, and it's only available for a limited time. Use the link in the description to book your demo and get 2 free months, but you have to do it by March 31st. And when you reach out, tell Will and his team that you heard about the deal on Contractors Edge. Go to PER4MANCE.io.
So I think you really touched on something important. So we started doing these multi-track events where we've got, sales, owner, production tracks with the intention of don't just bring the owner, bring your people with you, bring your team with you, right? Because the problem is the owner is the only one that goes. And yes, he gets this energy and he gets this infusion of ideas and rah, rah. Then he goes back home, goes to the team, and the team's like, and
Mhm.
implementation is a challenge, right? Well, if you
Yeah.
bring in your whole team and your whole team is getting involved and your whole team is getting energized, then the whole team goes back. And guess what? Implementation is a lot easier. So the past couple years, roughly half of our attendees have actually been additional attendees. So not just an owner, but an owner bringing somebody, either a
That's
sales
awesome.
guy or a production guy, something like that. So I think it's really an important point.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Anthony, because that was one of the big things. We had gone to some conferences over the years, and when we come back, it's just like you're saying, Sean, where we're like banging our head, we didn't get buy-in from the team. They were annoyed that we were bringing something back. We had, what we felt, we were like, oh my gosh, this is great information. The presenter, justified every bit of this, and now we can bring it back and implement it. And that was just like nothing but resistance. And it could have been a new product or a part of our process. And then it was interesting, and Ron really just like changed it up, and he was like, "Nope, we're bringing more of the team to these things." And we even got to a point we would bring the controller, because the controller actually became part of our resistance. The CFO, I don't know about getting it in, and he would take the best notes, ask the best questions, and you're like, "Wow, this is fantastic!" Like he's buying in. We get back. Implementation was a heck of a lot easier when we had each of the departments represented. So I love that. That's great.
Yeah. So I want to go to another question here. Where is trust breaking down right now between homeowners and contractors? Like, obviously, in the home service business, especially with contractors specifically, there's always that barrier that you have to like make it across, which is trust. These projects can be pretty expensive. People have to be willing to believe that you're going to accomplish this goal in like revitalizing or protecting their home. How do you feel that trust breaks down in that relationships?
Well, I think there's two main things. One is, okay, you Google waterproofing or structural repair or whatever. And to a homeowner, everybody pretty much looks the same, right? We all do roughly the same things. We all have pictures of people smiling on the website, or a guy running a jackhammer or whatever. Like on the surface, and even the companies who actually talk about some of the differences, they're differences that don't mean anything to the homeowner. They don't understand what they're reading, right? So they don't know who to trust. And so then they call some of these companies, and unfortunately, there's still a significant percentage of the companies out there that are just structured in a way where that salesman's going to stay in that seat until he gets kicked out, right?
Yeah.
So he's there for 2 hours. Like the homeowner has checked out. The homeowner's like, "Dude, I'm done. I let me talk to my wife. We'll think it over. We'll get back to you." But if he leaves that house without a contract, he's not getting paid, right? So there's still a
Yeah.
lot of that out there. And I think that combination of those two things, if you all look the same, and then I hear these horror stories because my neighbor had to kick this guy out after he was sitting there for 2 hours and he wouldn't take the hint.
Mhm.
Like that's where the lack of trust comes from, I think.
No, I agree with you there. And like one thing that I always try to get my clients to understand is like the easiest way to get somebody to trust you is to tell them why they should and then ask them to, right? Like I feel like a lot of the time people gloss over or they make it an afterthought and they say, well, these people should trust me. I have a 5-star review. My BBB looks really great. I'm a family owned business. I've been in the market for 50 years. I have like, and you have all these reasons why somebody should trust you, but then you don't tell them that. Right. So like in your sales process, it's not one of those like key tenets that you have as part of your system is to go over the process of building trust. I know in a lot of sales systems, they kind of force it into this build rapport section where
Mhm.
it's like you walk in the door, you look for photographs of the kids playing soccer, and you talk about, the soccer season. You ask them, how did they place in the tournament? Or, you try to, drum up some type of candid conversation that's focused on the homeowner or their family, and you try to build rapport, right? In like when you're looking and analyzing people's sales systems, the ones that actually use systems and scripts and formalize things, they all at least have a touch on that rapport building side of things. But I think the the side like really focused on just trust signals and why you should be trusted like is somewhat overlooked because like you said you're doing a lot of those things on the website, right? You're showing pictures, like, and maybe you're one of those companies that actually sends a notification like, hey, here's the inspector that's coming out to your home. This is Jonathan Radley or whatever his name is. He's got this much experience. And, you have like some call outs, but then Jonathan in the home doesn't tell them why he should be trusted or why the company should be trusted. And it kind of allows you to fall into that everyone is the same feeling. What do you think of that?
I think that's true. And I think there's sales training there, but there's also the issue of, okay, so inspector from company A comes in and he's certified. He's
Hmm.
certified by his company. What does that mean?
Oh, sure.
Right? That means
Hmm.
nothing. But all the customer heard is certified, right? And then my guys come in and they're certified by the BHA, a third party, the actual trade association for this work.
Hmm.
Right? That means something completely different. But again, all they heard is certified, right? So they're going to have a different experience with my guys than they're going to have with that other certified guy. Right. So
Hmm.
again, now that word is coming under attack. Certified. Oh, whatever. Doesn't mean anything. Right. So there is an issue there, and that's something
Yeah.
through the BHA. We've actually developed created a marketing committee to really start engaging with getting the word out there about what the BHA is so that the homeowner understands that, hey, that BHA certification is valuable. That means something. That's protecting
Yep.
me as a homeowner, right? Compared to all this other noise.
Well, we always like to call those like planting landmines when you're basically pushing the conversation towards a market differentiator. And like your differentiator could be, I have a BHA third party certification, right? And then you're basically saying, if you have another contractor out here, make sure if they're telling you that they're certified, that that certification doesn't come from their own production team, right? And now you have a landmine. If you do get that Angie's List style customer that wants to get 3 estimates, because we've kind of educated the masses to do that. Those other two contractors, if they bring up that certification, that homeowner may be weaponized to ask that question, like, who does your certification, right? And you can get that conversation going in the direction that you want it to. And the same is true. I always bring up warranties, because like warranties used to mean something in contracting, and nowadays a lifetime warranty is like legal to a certain point in a certain state, right? Like sometimes a lifetime warranty really is 10 years and people don't realize that. Like I have a company that we work with that offers a better than lifetime warranty, which means in that state a lifetime warranty is worth 15 years and they're actually going further than that, and kind of educating your customer that, like, what do warranties mean in your state and what does your warranty mean, like what is the offer that you're doing, but then also the protection of a lifetime warranty from a company that is 2 years in business is worthless, right? Like, plant those landmines.
We're getting more and more spinoffs with all the consolidation that's happening, and
Mhm.
guys are leaving and opening up their own thing. And even though they're a year in business, their website says 25 years experience, right? Which means the salesman had 13 years and the production guy had 12 years. And between the two of them, they have 25 years of experience, but the business has only been, around for 1 year. But again, customers don't know any of that. All they see is 25 years of experience, right? And it's
Mhm.
not till it's too late till they get burned that they learn, you know?
And it can be so misleading. It's tough too because you think about the perspective of the homeowner, the perspective of the salesman that's in the home. As you mentioned, there was like I remember the 2 hour, got to be in the 2 hour, got to sit at the kitchen table, got to do this, got to do that. And it's funny because you said running out, a salesman. My wife and I, we had to run out a guy. We were, interested in getting some water filtration systems set up for our home. This is years ago, but we could not get rid of this guy. And I'm like, you cannot tell me that the company that you're representing really wants you sitting here in my home, refusing to leave until we sign a contract. And, I think my perspective now is, as a homeowner, we're all really busy. I feel like, our lives have all been kind of fast forwarded. We're busy with kids, we're busy with activities, super busy with work and travel. So you start to think about, like, if I had a representative coming into my home, I'm hoping that they would respect my time, not automatically think that they need to start this clock of 2 hours when they walk in, but, be authentic, understand what my needs are, what my concerns are, and really just provide the solution if that's what your company does. I mean, that's, and that kind of leads me in, just reading through, the notes and the approach that BHA takes, you know, how is the BHA helping to raise those standards, without creating like extra red tape?
It's basically promoting better standards on the sales and marketing side and better standards on the production side, right? Really, really pushing against what we call par selling. Right. Because that's kind of where that 2 hour thing comes from. You sell on par. You're not working off a price list. You're just making up your price. You're starting high. Then you're doing the drop, trying to get them on. And you're hanging in until you either get a signature or you get kicked out. Right. And it's just, I mean, can't remember one person in the BHA who's been like, yeah, that's, that that's the way we do it. that's our favorite way. We think that's the best way for the customer. Like, no, everybody I've talked to in the beach, when they hear that, like, oh man, no, that's the way it used to be, and that's the way it was. Everybody grew up in that same system through
Yeah.
all the big companies that we all know about that, and they all learn the same thing from the same people. But it just doesn't. I'm not going to say it doesn't work. I mean, people still do it. It probably works
Yeah.
from their standpoint in terms of making money, but it doesn't work for the homeowner. Yeah.
No.
And the people who are in the room at BHA, they care about being better. They care about providing better solutions for the homeowner. I mean, they expect to make money, yes, but they expect that as a result of doing good work. And nobody who cares about doing good work is going to sit there and think, you know what, sitting in this chair for 2 hours just to grind them down to get a signature. Nobody's going to think that that's good work, right?
I love that.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that you're saying that too, because I don't want our listeners, obviously it's a wide span. It's, guys that are off on their own, kind of starting a business all the way up to, the 20 plus million companies out there that, we know that we're talking to that listen as well. It's don't get caught in that. That's like, I don't know, it's so stone age. It's a horrible experience for the homeowner. It's got to make your sales reps really just feel so uncomfortable. And I figure, there's so much in that relationship building, as Anthony alluded to, you know, get in, give an honest evaluation, provide an honest quote, have the conversations, answer the questions. That's how you get a deal.
It is, but it also, like that other structure also promotes dishonesty in the sense of, like, I interviewed a guy who came from one of those big outfits, sales guy, and he was a very successful sales guy. And he was basically explaining to me his pitch. Like, he would walk in ratty sweatshirts, and like he looked like he just walked off a job site.
Wow.
And he would actually say, "I'm not a salesman. I'm a project engineer. They just asked the office asked me to stop by to do them a favor." None of that was true, right? He actually kept a coffee can in his beat up truck, and he drove around and beat up a truck on purpose. This guy could easily afford any BMW. This guy was
Oh
making
yeah.
great money, right? But he kept a beater on purpose, right? It was part of his image. Kept a
Mhm.
coffee can in there full of flour. And before he would go in, get out of the car, he would like dab himself with flour because it looks like concrete dust, right? I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
this guy had it down. This guy
Wow.
was an Academy Award winning artist, right? And,
Wow.
but it worked. I mean, he was
That's wild.
really, really good at it, and the customer doesn't know the difference, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that kind of structure, you're just incentivizing whatever it takes to get that signature, and some people are really good at coming up with creative ways to get it, right?
That is painful.
Yeah,
Painful.
as a business owner, if you knew that, that's terrifying. That the thought of somebody out there representing your company that way, right?
Oh yeah, it would infuriate me.
Sean, I was hoping for me specifically and for the audience, can you explain the difference between a regional and a micro regional event and who should attend?
Sure. So that term regional is probably just it's language we just inherited. We probably should come up with a different term for it. But the all right, let's start with what is more common is the regional. So in Chicago this fall, the exact dates it's like the second or third week in Chicago. Forget the exact dates, but we can look them up here at the Rivers Casino, just right near the O'Hare Airport. We're going to have our 2-day event. We're shooting, probably going to have about 250 people there, probably around 50 vendors. We're going to have multi-track education, so of owners, sales, production. I mean, if you want to grow your business, show up, and don't just show up, bring your people, right? There's something there for everybody. We're going to have some interesting things on the PE side. So, if you're on the older side of your business and starting to think about what the next steps are, how to get out of it, looking at exit strategies, there'll be stuff there for you. If you're just new into the business, there'll be a ton of things for you to learn and take away and improve your business and grow. So that's we're calling that the regional, but that's really like our national event, right?
Sure.
Now, these micro regionals are things this is a new thing that we're developing. Like I'm going to host one of the first ones in the Philadelphia area where it's just it's not even a full day. It'll be like a dinner or a luncheon
Nice.
kind of thing where we'll reach out and invite I'm talking about my competitors, right? I'm going to reach out and
Yeah.
invite my competitors into the room, right? And we're going to try and learn something, but more importantly, just network and learn about each other and start to develop those relationships. Because here's the thing. In the BHA, even people who are competitors, when they're in the room, they're really not competitors. I mean, we have a really high concentration of members in like the New York and North Jersey area. At any of these events, you'll see those guys sitting at the table, talking to each other, sharing stories. I mean, they're some of the best collaborators in the entire organization. So it really, there, uh, you know, John Bryant used to always say that the big secret is there are no secrets, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's no magic silver bullet. Like, we're just all learning from each other, and we're all just trying to help each other improve. So when you get in that room together, you're not competitors.
Yeah.
So
No, I like that approach. I know it's something that Anthony and I had talked about, and we were excited to talk about. The events. Obviously, we attended the BHA national conference in Chicago, and wow, great great facility. I love the venue. The way that you guys had everything laid out. Tons of vendors, great social networking. You had awesome speakers, and that's like the type of thing that, oh my gosh, we were kind of capturing content along the way, talking to some of the folks that were exhibiting to put the content out there, because we're like, oh my gosh, more people need to be aware that this exists for educational purposes, support, networking, affiliations. A great opportunity, obviously, for vendors and even our agency to get out there and get in front of these contractors. So we loved the event. So thank you guys. Thank you to your team for organizing it. And obviously, we're excited to exhibit and participate again. Here in 2026.
yeah, absolutely. That's good. It's going to be a fantastic show.
That's good. So I'm curious, one of the pieces that I had just as a general note that I wanted to ask about, how do people, like, how do they become a member? Are there certain steps? Are there requirements, qualifications? What's that look like just for, our audience?
I mean, basically, you go to our website. There's a link on there. You can sign up through there. It's pretty easy. So memberships are yearly memberships, and everybody's membership starts at the same time and renews at the same time. So the membership year is from July 1st to June 30th. So it's the follows the fiscal year, right? But starting this upcoming year, we're actually introducing 4 different membership tiers. You'll have a basic tier at, I'm going off memory, so my numbers might be
Sure.
slightly off, but but I'm pretty close. A basic tier, that's $3.95, and that just gives you your basic membership. Anything else is a la carte. So if you want to go to Chicago, you pay for that separate. Online, you pay for that separate. Certification, you pay for that separate. Everything's separate. Then we have the next tier, which I believe is $6.99, and that'll get you not just your membership, but it gets you one free attendee to Chicago, and we'll give you online access for one person. Then the next tier, I believe, is 9, which gives you 2 free attendees in Chicago and online access for, I believe, 10 people.
Wow.
I have to double check that. It's either 5 or 10, but I believe it's 10 people.
Sure.
And then we have a third tier, which we expect the majority of people to choose. And I want to say that's $15.99. And that'll give you 3 attendees to Chicago, and I believe up to 25 access for up to 25 people for the online on demand.
Oh, that's awesome.
Any of those tiers, that include the online on demand access, if you want to get certified, you'll already have access to the learning material just by having on access to the platform. But if you want to take the test and actually achieve that certification, then it's $99 per test per person, in addition to that.
Right. So you put value in that certification. Obviously, I can't wait to see the access, and the educational resources. So that'll be a great place, I think, for people to be able to learn more, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, we're excited about it.
So we wanted to jump over to the industry shifts and challenges, and we were curious what you were seeing across the industry right now that most owners are missing.
Oh, I mean, there's two big things, right? And they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. One is, I may as well just say it, groundworks, right? I mean, they're the big 800-pound gorilla in the room,
Oh.
and nothing. I'm not saying anything. It's not a bad thing. Like, the fact that they're there and they exist is not a bad thing, but it is scary to contractors who feel like they don't have the resources to go toe to toe with them, right? So, and groundworks isn't the only one. There are others that are in the same ballpark, doing the same thing, really consolidating and growing their footprint. And they're taking advantage of price leveraging and cost leveraging, and bringing margins down that small contractors just can't compete with, right?
Yeah.
So, but then on the flip side, you've got, that happens, and then you've got these guys who are disenchanted with it and they leave. And maybe it's a production guy and a sales guy get together, and then they open their own shop. And let's just assume they were really good at sales and really good at production. It doesn't mean they're really good at running a business, right?
That's right.
It's a different animal, right? So back to your point of that warranty of a 2-year-old business is worthless, because the likelihood of those guys being around 5 years from now statistically is very, very low, right?
Mhm.
because they've got a steep learning curve. Like they thought
Mhm.
they had the hard job, right? And the rest of it was easy. None of it's easy. There is no easy job. If it was easy, we wouldn't have to pay people to do it, right? So,
Right.
and you only have two of at least four, if not more, very important aspects that have to be done very well in order to survive as a business. So it's this tension between this gorilla over here and this truck and a truck over here. And we're kind of stuck in the middle, getting pulled in two different directions. So I think that's where the real tension in the industry is coming from right now.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely feel it
Like
and see it, and you hear about it. I mean, private equities, kind of coming in, and I always kind of feel like they're almost like the board, where they come in and they consume something that had so much life to it, and then just kind of wipe it out. So it's always fun to compete against them. I will say that. So, like when we're talking about private equity and the way that those businesses are kind of coming in and really creating an industry shift in the waterproofing and foundation side of things. What are your suggestions, or how do you see independently owned businesses competing against them?
So it's a challenge without question. Probably 10 years or so ago, give or take, is when I started having kids and young kids. So it changed my time dynamics. And, prior to that, we used to be very engaged in the community and just in terms of
Mm.
networking and marketing and whatnot. And that all kind of went away and we just pushed a button and paid money and got leads, right? Well, that's become a lot harder now between A, just the cost of those leads, and B, the effectiveness of them, and even just the ability to get enough just from that one source alone, right? So now and now that these big guys are in here and they're making the cost of that just unsustainable, it's really pushing guys like us back to the basics, back to what we do, because that puts us somewhere where they can't compete, right? I'm a face. I'm a face in my community that has a story to tell, and it's not just some anonymous behemoth corporation, right? And it's not some owner that you're never ever going to meet, right? Like
mhm.
I sponsor the baseball team because my kid's on this baseball team. I'm on the sidelines at the
Mhm.
games, right? So I think that's where the opportunity is for the smaller local family owned guy to still get out there and compete, because the groundworks isn't doing that. I mean, they may sponsor some baseball teams, but they're not showing up. They just don't have that community presence, and they certainly don't have the face of that community, or the face of their organization in that community.
It's a harder like hurdle for them to clear because like communities are so fragmented, right? Like you can have a community that's your neighborhood, your suburb, your city. You can have social groups that are based on hobbies or interests. There's sporting groups. There's so many different ways that those things are dissected or sliced up. For private equity to try and buy presence in all of those, and to make that presence be like manpower would get very expensive. And it's funny to say that about the 800-pound gorilla, that like expense would ever be a hurdle for them. But like you'd have to hire a lot of people in order to be everywhere, right? And
You do. Now, there's two different sides to it. One is just the sponsorship where you're just paying money and your logo goes on some banner or some shirt. And they are doing that. I mean,
Mhm.
you actually go and kind of look at their websites. They are putting money into the communities without question. Now, having anybody show up, I mean, they have show teams, but those guys are going to home shows and
Mhm.
stuff like that. They're not showing up at a soccer tournaments or, those types of things. It's actually being not just being in the community, but being a part of the community. That's where the
Exactly.
difference is. And you
Yep.
can't.
Yeah, we're in
And
alignment with you on that for sure.
yeah, I was gonna say, Mike and I talk about that all the time, that we feel that is like that big differentiator that you can say, like when we're, kind of coaching or consulting on making a new video, constructing a new message. That's one of the like things that I think you should hit every time. And it's one of those trust signals. Point out like these relationships or these contributions that you do, point out that, you're headquartered in this hometown and that you're really a hometown brand. You're not one of these PE national global type of operations. You're actually still mom and pop owner operator, like local business, because they're posturing as one and you really are one, right?
Yeah,
No, we
I, thi-
definitely
I
agree.
thi- I think the other opportunity, I would say, the probably 80 to 90% of the businesses in our industry are even just the names are anonymous. Like mine is Worthington Foundation Authority. That's not like Worthington. It's my name, right? I put my name on the line for a reason. Now I got a different story. I'm third generation, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, and that's a big part of the reason why I did that. Right. But that's a differentiator, right? The 58 and the Venteras and the Groundworks can't do that. So there's an opportunity for that 10 or 20% of the businesses out there that have their name out there, leverage it, use it, like really lean into it.
For sure. No, I do agree with that. I love having, kind of like the face, the name, in the community. When you're local and doing all of that and you're really entrenched in the community, it's another thing to be present, not just be a sponsor. So I love that approach. Well, Sean, we're going to kick off a little rapid fire. Anthony, I prepared a few questions that we're going to ask you. And what we really want, we want you to give your tips to the homeowners or to these business owners so they can actually apply that and then improve, these outcomes, protect margins. So as we go through these, don't have to put a lot of thought into them, have some fun with it. But we really think our audience will appreciate this. So Anthony, kick us off.
Right. So what's one thing to tighten in the inspection and scope writing process?
The key is to have a clearly defined process, right? Don't just walk in and wing it. Don't just go to where the homeowner takes you and only focus on that area. Every inspection should be the same, thorough, inside and outside. You should be documenting everything. We use Company Cam. Can't say enough about Company Cam. I think it's a game changer, but whatever your system is, get pictures, share them with the customer, right? That is step one, because that's what avoids, we got a problem over here. Now our crews show up and they see a problem over there. And now you have to have that conversation about, well, now you have to spend more money because we found a problem that the inspector didn't find, right? So now we got two strikes. A, we didn't find it the first time, and B, now you got to spend more money than we originally told you got to spend, right? So you could avoid that by being thorough in the beginning by having a clear inspection system.
That's a perfect answer, by the way.
All right. Well, what is one install standard that you refuse to compromise on?
Going to give you two. One is something that, to the best of my knowledge, we're the only people that do this. And we came up with this by talking with a radon guy, because it was just a customer, a typical scenario where the radon guy is pointing to us and we're pointing to the radon guy saying it's his problem. No, it's your problem. And I had gone, when I first joined the BHA, I'd gone to 4 different events and heard somebody up there, my first 4 events, every one of them had somebody up there talking about radon. Like radon. Like, why are we talking about radon? I could care less about radon. I'm a waterproofer. It took me to the 4th time for me to actually kind of wake up and say, oh, you know what? Maybe this is kind of important. Maybe I should be paying attention to this and doing something better that isn't, and not just pointing the finger at the radon guy, right? So that's around when I reached out to radon guy. We had this conversation. Say, hey, how can we do this in a way that works for both of us, that doesn't compromise the integrity of either one of our systems and still avoids callbacks, right? Because the big issue with waterproofing is we have that gap, and that gap is the issue. And that's the cause of the tension between the radon guys and the waterproofing guys. Well, what if we can seal that gap, but seal it in a way where water can still run down the wall if it were to get inside the wall and not get on the floor and cause me a callback, right? So what we did is we came up with a thing where when we do our wall encapsulation, we call it breathable wall encapsulation. So what we do first is we put a layer of rain screen on the wall first. Rain screen is like what they put behind stucco to create an air gap or a drainage gap, right? And then we put our high density polyethylene sheeting over top of that, and we put a termination bar at the top that's fully sealed. So now if water does get through that wall, it's going to run down. And of course, at the bottom, that gets folded into our system.
Right, into your system.
Yeah. So now water comes in, it rolls down, gets into our system. Radon, any other soil gas cannot. It can't get up. But here's the other very important thing. And sooner or later, everybody's going to start doing this, because sooner or later, somebody's going to get sued for not doing it. If you don't put that rain screen on there and you put that plastic on a wet wall, you're going to have what I call the shower curtain effect. Okay. Get this mold, exactly. Get a plastic shower curtain, folds on itself, and it gets wet. Nobody unfolds it. Mold grows in between there. You get a wet wall, wet plastic, mold is going to grow in between there. And not just that, especially if it's a block foundation, you're going to disintegrate that wall over time. I mean, I've gone and I've peeled plastic off, not my installs, but peeled plastic off other installs. There's a pile of dust at the bottom of the wall from the block deteriorating. Sooner or later, there's going to be a foundation failure, and sooner or later, somebody's going to get sued. As soon as that happens, every contractor in the company is going to do what I'm doing right now, right, to prevent that from happening. So you got to give that wall ability to breathe, let that moisture come through, condensate on the plastic, which is now there's a gap because of that rain screen, right? So now it's not sticking on the wall. Mold isn't growing. The wall isn't deteriorating. That water is rolling down and getting into our system. So that's one thing I will never, I mean, unless somebody comes up with a better way to do it,
Right. Exactly.
I will never compromise on that. The second thing I'll never compromise on is the type of pump we use. And I'm not talking about the brand, I'm talking about the type. There are two main types of pumps. There are shaded pole motor pumps and there are permanent split capacitor motor pumps. And for any contractor out there listening that doesn't know the difference, listen up. Okay. And this is one of those things, again, I learned through by being part of the BHA. Shaded pole motor for a 1/3 horsepower pump is going to run about 11 amps, give or take. A permanent split capacitor or PSC pump for that same 1/3 is going to run about 4 amps. Amps equal temperature. Okay. Every pump has a little thermal sensor in it to shut it off if it gets too hot because there's oil in those pumps and it could explode. Right. So, well, when is a pump getting too hot? When it's running. When is it running the most? When you need it the most. Yes. Right. So during a hurricane, when the water is nonstop, this pump is going. It's getting hotter, and then suddenly says, "Hey, I need a break. Otherwise, I'm going to explode." Right in your crisis moment. Permanent split capacitor motors are continuous duty rated. They can run 24/7 as long as water is present in that pump. Which means even in your highest volume scenario, that pump is not going to stop. At least not for that. I mean, there are other things that could happen, but at least for that reason, it is not going to stop. So those are
Removing a point of failure.
Correct.
I hope the listeners are taking notes. I mean, that's great tips. And clearly I can understand why you wouldn't compromise on either one of those.
Yeah. So the next one is near and dear to my heart because we're talking sales, right? And sales discipline, which is very important because sales needs discipline. I'll say that. So what is one sales discipline that can increase close rate without discounting or compromising on service?
I mean, education, certainly, right? I mean, our challenge is we're walking in. They think they have one problem. They really don't. They have 3 problems, 2 of which they didn't even know existed, and they certainly don't understand how it works or what they need to solve them. Right. So the challenge is educating it in a way that doesn't overwhelm the customer, and that's a hard balance to find. Right. And I will not sit here and say I'm the expert at that. I hire salesmen for a reason. I mean, it's not my forte, but education is really the key. You got trucks in the trucks who go out there, they measure it, and they say, "Oh, it'll be $5,000 or whatever." And then you got the artists, like I explained before, putting on the show and the concrete dust and the flour, and they're just making stuff up. So somewhere in that middle is the key. And I think really asking good questions and not talking too much is the key to doing that. Right? And that's something I'm still learning. We're still evolving, right? Trying to get better and better at it.
Yeah, I actually really like that answer. I want to throw like a little bit more onto it as well. I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong or speaking out of turn. I think that's something that I observe when like moving forward in my sales career as something as the salesperson that was important to me because as a salesperson, sometimes you can come across as the person who all you do is talk. Like there's like a respect level that you kind of have to like get over in a lot of ways because you're not the person who's actually a contractor. You're not the carpenter, you're not the builder, you're not I'm not the person who's executing on projects and stuff. So early on in my sales career, I made it like a concerted effort to really understand what this like the service or the product is that like I'm selling so that when somebody's asking me a question, it doesn't feel superficial the way I answer, right? It doesn't come across as this guy's just trying to sell something, right? It's like you can talk to me about why something works. So imagine your salesperson could wax poetic about the difference between those 2 pump systems, right? Are you going to look at that salesperson as just this bag of hot air now? If he can explain to you like fundamentally the differences and what your needs are and why they're important and, like roll from the education side. That was something that I always like determined as like a good focus or a good like channel to lean into so that you don't have to fight that objection all the time. And it's like, do you even know what you're talking about? Like, are you just trying to sell me something?
So I think it really depends on the salesman's background. So the most successful salesmen for me have been former contractors, where they walk in with automatic trust level, right? Credibility. And then you got on the other end of that spectrum was my father, who was a fantastic salesman. He didn't know any of the technical stuff, right? If you handed him a shovel, I'm not sure he would know which end to use, right? But people liked him, right? They trusted him. He was just this nice old guy, right? And he, to this day, he's probably one of the best salesmen I've ever met. I mean, he just everybody remembers my dad. Everybody loves my dad. Somehow I didn't get that DNA from him, so I'm not sure. So it didn't work for me. But it's just a different approach because at the end of the day, you're trying to get to trust. That's what you're trying to achieve, right? And if I know you've done the work, like right now, my best salesman right now actually came from our crews. He worked on our crews for a couple of years, and he's really young. He has no business doing this well in sales as young as he is. Like he's not even 25, right?
Wow.
But because he walks in there, yeah, I mean, that's the age I was when I first got involved in the family business and started selling. And I always struggled because my average customer was 10, 15, 20 years older than me, right? Gus has that same problem, but he's walking in with that instant credibility of I wasn't just a contractor, I did this work. In fact, if you go on the video on our website, you're going to see me in that video, right? So it's instant credibility, and he's killing it. He's doing great.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's
Yeah, I mean, that's a
fantastic.
perfect application too.
So I wanted to add one more thing to what I was saying earlier is like one way to like implement that like education first side of thing is like these aren't objections a lot of the times. They're questions that a homeowner asks that you just didn't have the answer for at the time. You know, sometimes you'll kind of skirt by it or like redirect the conversation. Write down what that question was, educate yourself on what the answer is, because 9 times out of 10, if a homeowner asks you about something that's related to the service that you're trying to sell, it's going to come up again. And you can have that answer and be that authority the next time. So
I try and tell, especially when they're newer, anybody that's coming on is you should try and get something out of every inspection, every opportunity. And even if you think you're not getting the sale, that's fine. Get something else out of it, right? Get an experience. Try a different approach. Try asking different questions. Or in this case, learn something like, shoot, that's a question I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Well, find the answer so that you got it for next time, right?
Yeah, it's really helpful. We had a rep that I enjoyed spending time around where he would go in and he would just give like almost like a education every time, you went on an inspection, and his goal was to build that rapport just through that educational process and, getting the respect. But what often led to, even if it wasn't something that we could help out with service wise, he would either give them an introduction to, a contractor that potentially could, or even give them like a little DIY thing, or, hey, the reason why you're getting all this water here, it's really just the downspouts. I mean, you've got to work on the grading. This isn't something that we do. It's something that you could do yourself, or you can have a landscaper or, a general contractor come out and kind of work on this stuff for you. But the goal is to capture that water and get it as far away from your foundation as possible. And he'd walk it off for them so that they could see how many feet away from the property line you need to be. I was like, oh man, that's so helpful. And then he'd get a 5-star review just for doing it. And I mean, I thought that was great because you weren't maybe necessarily getting that sale, but now you got a good review and it mentioned you. So kind of helps build that level of credibility for when you do go to try to close a deal, and you might have to lean into that review. So
Well, it's not only that, but you might have had a 10% chance of turning that into a sale, but you've got almost 100% chance of turning that into a referral.
that's right.
that's what I was about to say.
Great point.
Yeah. So
That's
I mean,
great.
we're the same way, but like we do not like we go in there and look. It's obvious they don't need what we tell them. I mean, we're not trying to. Now, having said that, the physics of construction are such that we think a lot of people need what we need.
Oh my gosh,
They
yes.
realize it, But if it's clear and obvious, we definitely, we try and we're as upfront as possible and try and help them out as best we can.
All right. So, Sean, what is one way that these contractors can reduce the callbacks or warranty headaches?
Performance pay, without question. That is the silver bullet. Probably, 30 or more years ago, the way we did it back then is we took our crews and turned everybody from 2 and turned them into a 1099. That was 30 years ago. But almost overnight, that went from 4 guys taking 4 days to do 100 feet and cut that in half. And it was also structured in such a way that if there was a callback, they had to go back and fix it on their time, on their dime, right? So quality was baked into that incentive. And like I would come to these events and people would be talking about callbacks and service. I'd be like, we don't have any of that. Like that's just not a problem we have because it's already built into the incentive. Now, IRS, makes it tougher to do that in today's world, but you can still do performance pay under a W-2 structure. There are multiple companies out there, some within our industry. And, I highly recommend if this is something that sounds interesting to you, check out Performance IO, something I really recommend. I think it'd be a game changer for you.
Yeah, and
Love
that's
those
our
guys.
our buddy too. I mean, Will Blake, great affiliate. We love, Performance IO. They're actually our first sponsor, of the podcast. So we were excited to bring Will on, and we see the same thing. So many of our clients are adopting performance pay, and that platform does really make it easy and motivate individuals to do their job and do it well. Along with that, obviously, comes the training and the certifications to ensure that you can do that well.
So, Sean, what's one metric that you want business owners, contractors to track weekly that you think changes everything?
No, that's the magic question, right? And when we always struggle with what are we measuring? Are we measuring the right things? To me, and maybe it's just where I'm at in my journey right now, everybody's language is a little different for this, but we'd call it leads to appointments. Some people call it presentations, but to us, okay, a lead comes in. If 100 leads came in, how many actually turned into appointments, right? Because that's the ultimate, that means how many leads came in? Did my marketing work? How many appointments did we get out of it? Are we attracting the right people and are we responding in time? Are we getting in the door? Other stuff obviously has to happen. You got to close, you got to sell it right, all that kind of stuff. But that's the starting point. So to me, that's the single most important metric.
No, I like that one too. I always talk about it as well because it's the top of the funnel. Like if you're looking at the funnel like differently from how we use it in marketing, but for your like business ecosystem, the top of your funnel is your lead. So if you can improve your lead to appointment ratio, everything that's downstream from that will improve as well. So I actually really like that answer.
We're big KPI nerds, so obviously, if you listen to any of the other episodes, we really drive home the KPIs. Probably sound like a broken record half the time, but we truly believe in managing those, and the old 2% rule. Anthony's got a nice stoplight analogy that we like to apply as well. That just helps to kind of like fine tune that. But yeah, that top of funnel. I mean, that's the key to filling everything downstream.
I just thought of the best decorations for our studios, Mike. So
Yeah,
you
you
just
did.
get like a 2% bottle of milk, right?
Yeah.
Carton just sitting in the background, and you've got the stoplight up on the wall.
So, Sean, we've been racking our brains because we're like, we've been challenged to get rid of these green screens, which we really want to as well. But what do you put behind it? I mean, right now I'm covered with foam, boards, and that's boring. So we've kind of taken up our own little challenges. Man, I 2% bottle of milk would run it home for me. All right, Sean. Well, we're taking us into the home stretch here. As we're wrapping up. Where do contractors go to learn more about the BHA, the membership certifications, events, and overall education?
Our website is the easiest place to go. Everything is on there. Things get rolled out. Like Chicago isn't on there yet, but it will get rolled out as we get everything formalized. But that's basically the hub of all our information, all our certification, membership sign up, all that stuff is on there. So it's just basementhealth.org. That's the easiest place to go. From there, you can reach out and communicate with our executive director, who's Bonnie Johnson, who actually is my sister. So
She's such a great communicator too. I will say I see all the emails and I'm like, oh, I really appreciate the fact that like I always feel like I'm up to speed on what you guys are doing next.
well, Bonnie is the glue that keeps the BHA together. I mean, we would not have had the growth and the success that we've had over the past several years without her. So she's fantastic.
Now, if somebody wants to connect with you directly, where do you want them to find you?
Sure, they can just email me directly at Sean, it's SEAN at worthingtonfa.com, FA for Foundation Authority. But that's the easiest way to get to me.
Awesome. Well, Sean, we really appreciated having you on. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day and your schedule to, really give our listeners, more information, insights, tips, a real education regarding, the BHA and what you're finding that people are challenged with, in the home on a day to day. Do you have any final thoughts or any message for our listeners?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, the BHA is good people helping good people. And if that sounds like you, then you need to be in the room. So sign up, show up, get involved, engage, help yourself, and help everyone else.
Love it. Sean just closed it off with a kumbaya moment, so I'm going to wrap
Love
it as
that.
well. Thanks for listening to The Contractor's Edge. If you got value today, please make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or whichever streaming platform you prefer. Share this episode with a contractor you feel could use an edge. For more tools, resources, and support, visit yourcontractorsedge.com, and we'll be back with more tips, tools, and tactics to help you grow your business. Thank you.